Night never announces itself with thunder. It drifts in on a cool breath, smothering cell phone bars and turning every branch into a question mark. Somewhere out there, a door slams that no one remembers closing. A dog bristles at a shadow no light can pin down. A stranger's smile stiffens just inches from an 800-foot drop. 3 true accounts follow Oliver, Zoe, and Liam as the forest peels away their certainty one layer at a time, until instinct is all they have left. Stay through the final heartbeat, because the simplest safety habit is hidden in plain sight, and skipping it could write your name into the next campfire cautionary tale. Oliver hadn't set foot in his hometown for 5 years, and homesickness finally drew him south. Family dinners were pleasant, but his deepest craving was the forest he had roamed as a teenager, especially a rumor-soaked footpath that locals claimed led nowhere. Online whispers insisted the trail ended at a ruined hunter's lodge, its walls sagging beneath strangling vines. Finding the path took half a morning. There were no markers, only a boot-wide ribbon of dirt stitched with briars. Every few yards, Oliver shoulder-checked saplings that seemed determined to erase human memory. 2 hours later, the woods parted, and the lodge crouched ahead like a skull half buried in moss. Roof joists had collapsed inward. A crooked chimney leaned as though exhaling a final breath. The rot-thick stench drove Oliver back outside. Sleeping inside was no longer an option. Dusk stained the clearing rust orange, while Oliver raised a dome tent 200 feet away where maples thinned enough to let slivers of sky through. Crickets began their chorus until the forest answered with a different voice. A single resonant boom, like a giant timber, wrenched until it cracked. The hair along Oliver's arms lifted. He convinced himself it was merely settling wood and tended the fire until stars blinked between clouds. But the lodge refused to stay quiet. Moments later, a harsh, rhythmic scraping rose from the darkness as though claws were raking oak. Logic battled dread. Oliver decided to check the building before sleep became impossible. So he lifted the lantern and crept down the brush-choked path. The beam washed over the facade, and dread curdled. The door, wide open earlier, now sat firmly shut and freshly gouged top to bottom. When he tried the handle, it refused to budge, as if someone braced it from within. Investigating suddenly felt like volunteering to be prey. Oliver retreated, crunching leaves far faster than he had approached. Back at camp, the comforting glow of firelight was gone. A weak column of smoke coiled upward, dirt heaped over the coals. Lantern raised, he scanned the tree line. "Hello," the word vanished into stillness. Then a chuckle, dry, breathy, floated close enough to stir leaves, yet left no silhouette. Instinct demanded flight. Equipment was crammed into his pack. The tent came down in frantic handfuls. As Oliver hurried for the road, the laugh followed, playful as a child's, yet twice as wrong. 2 hours and countless glances later, headlights finally cut through dawn mist, but the nightmare left fingerprints behind. 5 muddy prints, long and narrow and ending in impossible points, were smeared across his back bumper. They hadn't been there that morning, and the shape matched the claw marks on the lodge door. Curiosity soon overpowered fear. Days later, crouched over microfilmed newspapers in the county archive, Oliver found a 1984 headline: "Hermit vanishes from remote hunting lodge. Search abandoned after snowstorm." The article described claw scores on the cabin door identical to his own discovery. 7 years on, whenever a night road hems him in with pines, Oliver flicks his high beams toward every turnout, hunting for that door-wide grin of scraped wood. Somehow, the darkness always grins back. Oliver's warning signs were etched on rotten wood. Zoe's arrived on 4 anxious paws. Weekend rituals rarely changed for Zoe and her Australian Shepherd Scout. An 8-hour trek to an isolated clearing, silence deep enough to reset an urban tattered mind, no notifications, no company. Yet, from the moment the pair reached the familiar site, Scout's body language spelled trouble. Earlier that afternoon, the dog paused beside a cedar-scarred chest-high by 5 deep ruts, puckering the bark, as if a gigantic claw had been dragged straight down. Zoe snapped a photo, planning to show a ranger and ask about bears. She would later replay that moment like a missed alarm clock. As twilight lowered, Scout completed a nervous perimeter sweep, tail low, then pressed against Zoe's knees and stared into the timberline. No thunder rumbled, no visible predators lurked. Unease nonetheless nested between Zoe's shoulders. A fire crackled too loudly, night fell too quietly, and Scout refused to relax. Around 10 o'clock, the shepherd jolted upright, hackles rigid. A flashlight beam dissolved after 30 feet, revealing nothing. Unable to rest, Zoe zipped them into the tent near midnight. Scout lay down, yet tension vibrated through his frame. Sometime before dawn, Zoe dreamed of wandering alone in pitch-black woods while a thin whine threaded the air until the noise became real. Scout nudged her cheek, the same anxious whistle cutting through canvas. Heart hammering, she flicked on a lantern and unzipped the flap. 10 feet away stood a hooded man, half his face hidden, a pocket knife catching lantern light. Scout's growl vibrated the ground. The stranger's shoulders twitched. He lifted a foot as if to advance. Zoe's hand closed around a canister of bear spray. One more step and the chemical cloud would blind him. Instead, he weighed the odds, turned, and vanished among the pines. Neither woman nor dog waited for a sequel. They tore down camp in record time, Scout casting backward glances until dawn painted the trailhead pale gold. Yet one last sign waited. Beside the flattened grass where the tent had stood, someone had arranged 5 pebbles into a neat arrow, all pointing toward the spot where the stranger had loomed. Zoe kicked the stones apart, though even the clatter sounded like a whispered threat. Rangers filed her account for the record and offered little more. Back home, Scout began jolting awake from nightmares, ears plastered against his skull. A trainer called it stress. Zoe called it a reminder. She still hikes, but now sets camp only in view of other tents, because sometimes the forest itself is the only witness left alive. Zoe at least received a warning. Liam faced danger eye to eye and nearly stepped into oblivion. November off-season chill left Sunset Ridge deserted. Liam relished the solitude after the 6-hour ascent, pitching camp by a stone fire ring and wandering to the cliff's lip for a sunset that bled orange over pine-thick valleys. While gathering firewood, he noticed a torn, filthy blanket, snagged impossibly high in a hemlock branch, far beyond the reach of mere wind. He dismissed it as litter. Later, he would wonder if it flagged a lookout perch. When the final ember of sun vanished, Liam turned and nearly collided with a stranger half hidden in brush. The man offered no greeting, no wave, only an unblinking stare before melting into shadow. No pack, no headlamp. Back at the fire, the campsite remained empty. Night glued itself to the mountain. Around 11, rhythmic crunches drifted from the trees, too deliberate for wildlife. "Anyone out there?" Liam called. The steps paused, resumed, then faded. Sleep felt unlikely, and before midnight, he returned to the overlook, hoping for stars. Low clouds veiled most, but the moon silvered the valley. Bushes exploded behind him. The stranger charged, wearing a grin so counterfeit it appeared stapled to his face, babbling about sharing the sky. Instinct screamed. Liam sidestepped, but the man mirrored and lunged, hands slamming into Liam's chest to rocket him toward an 800-foot drop. Boots skidded centimeters from the edge. Fear lent strength. Liam shoved back, the attacker stumbling before diving again with a snarl. Moonlight revealed sunken cheeks and fever-bright eyes. A brief grapple scratched boot soles against rock until the stranger lost footing. Liam seized the chance, sprinted to camp, grabbed his pack, and pounded down the trail without dousing the fire. 2 hours later, the headlamp flickered dead. Liam crouched beneath a tarp until pale dawn seeped through fir boughs. Rangers hiked back with him and found the fire pit carefully doused, his folding chair gone, and a single boot print stamped in the ash, tread that didn't match his own. Weeks after the incident, a deputy phoned, asking if Liam recognized a composite sketch tied to 2 other cliff-edge assaults. The face carried that same stapled grin. Sunset Ridge remains open, but locals now call it the Shove. 3 secluded forests, 3 human predators. Oliver learned that ruins can shelter the living. Zoe discovered that a dog's instinct hears what ears miss. Liam faced a smile designed to end a life in a single shove. Each survived by instinct, loyal teeth or sheer adrenaline. Seasoned guides insist on one trivial-seeming habit. Every hour, stop and listen. No earbuds, no chatter, granting the woods a chance to warn who else is near. It feels like nothing until a single snapped twig springs every nerve in the body, and those few seconds buy the difference between legend and obituary. Share these stories with anyone planning a trek, and subscribe if you liked the video for more. Until then, trust instinct, keep the campfire bright, and never ignore the silence. Leave a comment with your own trail warnings, because one shared mistake, one learned shortcut, could be the reason someone else makes it home alive.